Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. Today we have a fairly long and intense game moving forward, so let's get started by presenting the players. The black player is Wu Yiming, 7 Dan, and the white player is Luo Chuyue, 6 Dan. It's the first time I hear the name Luo Chuyue. It's probably a very young professional from China. I've never heard of her. Let's see how she does today, but Wu Yiming is very famous. She is 7 Dan, and she has won a champion title in China already, but basically a national level champion doesn't really make you 9p directly. Only international titles would give you 9p if you win the champion. But she's very, very strong, like one of the best female players in China. And she was amateur 1 Dan when she was 4 years old, which is just insane. That is crazy. Okay, so let's get started. So Wu Yiming starts with double 3-4 in the same direction, pretty rare these days. And white approaches corner, black plays the Kosumi, and white tenukis. And this is all AI stuff. Now, black approaches and white now pincers, right? This move not only pincers black, but tries to break into black's moyo. Black plays the pincer from the outside. Here, black doesn't really want to play a joseki like this. And the reason being that after this, we can see that this moyo is kind of canceling out with black's moyo over here. This is totally playable for both sides, but black wants to have a moyo, I think, in this game. Therefore, in the actual game, not only she builds the moyo, but also counterattacks white stone. White attaches on top, and black goes right into the corner. So here, I want to spend a little time to introduce you some joseki knowledge. Some of the knowledge might not be news for you, but some could definitely be, because when I was hearing from the professional commentary, I was pretty shocked that there's a lot of things that I didn't know. So when white attaches on top, black really has two choices. One is to wedge, and the other one is to play the 3-3 directly. So let's look at the wedge first. The wedge, black needs to make sure that this ladder is working for black, because after white Atari and connect, you have to be able to ladder the stone, or else this is not going to work for black. Since the ladder doesn't work for white, white has to Atari from top, black connects, and now white extends. Black goes into the corner, white extends and push, and white needs to Hane connect. So at this point, I think this is not news for any, I guess, my viewers who are in the single digit queue and Dan level. This is quite common. But what's next is not common at all. The correct move here is either for black to play the Kosumi, which we know, but there's another main variation that is for black to counterattack first. Before black lives, black wants to make use of white's weakness. If white connects on top, black can simply play the Kosumi right away, and this is a better position for black, the reason simply being that white needs to fix the cutting point right away, or else black is going to cut. This is going to make the 3 stones in a very awkward situation. So white likely needs to play a tiger's mouth, which has a lot of value, but this gives black a sente. So black is quite quick, quite fast in this fuseki, right? Getting the corner. This corner is solid. Now black plays a splitting move, and now white is under a lot of pressure in terms of territory. So that's a slightly better position for black if white connects on the bottom. If white connects on top, then black is going to jump on the third line. If white simply connects, then black can go back and play the Kosumi, and these exchanges are really good for black as it helps out the invasion on the left side. The correct move is for white to attach on the third line. This is trying to make black heavy over here, right? Not letting black to get a light shape where black can tenuki and start invasion. Against this move, black's correct move is actually to squeeze on the third line. Very hard to think of. So this looks like a very vulgar move, right? Against this, white obviously needs to connect the stone, but at this point, after this very seemingly bad exchange, black can actually tenuki here. Black doesn't have to play the Hane right away. Black's correct move is probably to extend on the second line. Against this move, it's a sente. White needs to connect, and now we can play the 3-space extension. When white pushes on top, we play very flexible. This is a very cool move, right? If you just play locally, this would be a bad position for you because black is heavy. But after we play the 2-space extension, not only this is a giant move, but also it's looking at crawling the stones back, right? But if white spends another move to fix it, this is very over-concentrated, and black can slide in with this move. And it's just a great position for black because black is very, very fast in this joseki. So very interesting. At this point, remember that black can use this squeeze to gain a very urgent sente and to play on the left side. So this is something that I learned today as well. I'm like close to 610, but I didn't know this variation. This is very AI stuff, and I just learned that today. Just wanted to share that with you. Okay, so that's the local variation. In today's game, what Wu Yiming has played was to directly go into the 3-3. And of course, against this, white has two main variations. One is the block over here. This is what I probably would have played. The problem with this move, though, is that black is going to crawl the stone back. When white connects, black will connect as well. So here, a lot of my viewers might play the wedge, but this wedge is a mistake because when black connects, this shape is actually a lot stronger than if black simply connect on the third line. So this wedge and connect didn't really do much for white, but it helped black become stronger. So you shouldn't play the wedge in your game. The correct move is to simply connect on the fourth line. Black is going to follow up with a connection, and now we see there is a Hane connect for white, and white needs to fix it. Black ends the joseki with a second line extension. This leaves white in a slightly awkward position because black get the territory. Black has a leak on the second line, but if you spend a move to deal with it, then this is already sente for black. Black's corner is perfectly fine, and now black can just play a splitting move over here, and this is very fast for black. But if you don't play, this leaves a awkward leaking move, right? If you try to build a moyo, you're always missing a move here, right? Even if black doesn't play right away over here, you will have to worry about it, right? Sooner or later. So this is an equal position, but I feel like this is slightly hard to manage as white. Which is why in the actual game, probably Luo Chuyue was also worried about that variation, therefore she played the tiger's mouth. In the old days, before AI came out, or before we studied so thoroughly with AI, the correct move is to play the jump, right? If white push and cut, whichever direction white cuts, we're going to capture that stone. However, today's theory is that white is going to play the pincer from the outside. And this gives a lot of, basically black is kind of awkward here. There's always this push and cut, but white just doesn't do it. He's just looking at it, and it's making black feel very uncomfortable. So black's correct move is probably still to connect like this, but then white plays a kosumi, further poking at black. If black blocks, then there's another kosumi coming in, right? If black wants to live, then he needs to block again, and then we see that white got so many kosumis, and it's really good for white. And this position is actually better for white. Therefore, these days, the jump doesn't happen too often. It's rare that you will see in professional games like players play jump here. The correct move is for black to play the crawl. This is what was played in the actual game. And theory has really changed quite a lot here. First of all, we all knew that white Hane doesn't really work because the double Hane will be countered by black squeeze on the third line. That's a very famous Tetsuji. If white connects on top, then we can Atari and capture. And now, as we can see, there's really nothing that white can do about it. So the squeeze is extremely strong, right? Like if you try to fix over here, then black can Atari like this, and then bump into white, and then Hane, and then we can see black just got too much territory, and this is not acceptable for white. So the very severe move that back in the days that we all are afraid of was white to play the Keima, trying to pressure black in a very smart way, right? Not attaching to you, rather we leave a little bit of space, but black is feeling a lot of pressure with this move. Now, back in the days, of course, like as black, you would be scared of this move, but today AI is telling us that we can just bump into white like this, and this is the correct move for black. If white extends on the second line, black will turn on top, white extends, and black bumps into white, and then simply Hane and extend. Very important for you to extend on the first line to make sure there's no life and death issues. But as you can see, black's corner is perfectly alive, and white has paid a lot of compensations. Basically, white paid a heavy cost over here by hurting the stone over here. There's still some cutting point over here. So this position is also slightly better for black. Now, if white pushes on top, then black is going to Hane on the second line. White Ataris, black. So white needs to do something about it, right? If white lets black just connect through and live the corner, then it's not a very good position for white because white simply lost too much territory. White will cut, black Atari, and then connect. And here, black can make use of this third line stone over here to make the cut. If white flip Ataris, black extends, and now white connects. And here, black can play the honey, pressuring the group over here. And the result of this fight is that white is, this is a difficult fight for white, right? Because of the liberty shortage that white has. But of course, if white just tried to kill the corner, then black can simply extend on top. And now, as we can see, this is a favorable position for black because this stone is captured. It's pretty much like white gave this stone as a gift to black inside black's territory. So we can see that the moyo is very strong towards the right, towards the bottom over here. Later on, there's like a little clamp, but there's a peep over here. The honey here is a problem for white. Not to say that at some point, right? At some point in the game, black can probably make use of the clamp to cause a problem in a corner. Of course, that's when this cutting point is an issue, right? We can clamp it in the corner because locally black's not going to live. But then if we have some cuts over here, then that could lead to a liberty issue for white. So anyway, the point I'm saying is that this variation is not good for white, right? White's corner is not going to compensate for what he lost on the outside. So when black honeys, it's a little difficult for white to deal with at this point. Okay, so that is how you play against white's pincer over here. In the actual game, white plays the jump. This is a very nice AI move, very good shape, and it controls the outside. Black has to slide out, obviously, to make sure the corner is very comfortable. And then at this point, white plays the 2-space high extension. Very nice move. You can see the low and high coordination. Very beautiful stuff. And black takes the giant move that connects the moyo. So here, maybe a safer option is for white to play the split, preventing black from forming such a giant moyo and letting black pincer over here. Right? This could be slightly easier to manage. In the actual game, when this happens, then white needs to figure out how to limit the potential that black has over here. In the actual game, white decides to invade from this side because this is an easier side to invade. If you go into here, you're already like super outnumbered and it's not a great fight for white. Black jumps out and white slides into the corner. Here, black cannot just passively play a move over here, right? This is a favorable exchange for white, and now white can just jump out, and now white already has a little bit of ice space. So for professionals, when you're poked with this move, the usual answer is to not worry about it locally. In the actual game, Wu Yiming played pretty well. The next move, she decides to bump the stone out, trying to form a base for black. White blocks on top, black honeys, and now white connects on the 4th line. This connect looks pretty normal, right? It looks like a very intuitive move because you do want to connect the stone, otherwise black's gonna Atari and black will become super strong. But connecting over here is the first mistake in the game for Luo Chuyue. The correct move is actually for white to play the tiger's mouth. So what is the difference? Well, the difference is quite obvious because when you connect over here, it doesn't really poke at black's weakness over here, right? So you're saving the stone, but you're only saving the stone and you're doing nothing else. But as we all know, Game of Go is all about efficiency, and therefore we should play a move that not only saves our stone, but also pokes at our opponent. Against this move, if black honeys on the 2nd line, then we can push through, and this becomes a influence versus territory. So this pushing through has a lot of value because it connects with the 2 stones over here. Therefore, these 2 stones never will be in trouble again, right? They're feeling quite safe, and their safety has a lot of value. If black plays the Atari, white connects, and black connects on top, making sure that these 2 stones are still cut off, then white can simply extend on the 2nd line. This is pretty much a sente against the corner. If black plays somewhere else, then, well, white can first try to live inside black's territory, right? But eventually, black basically needs to come back and deal with this. If you play somewhere else, then white can attach, right? You can't really counterattack because then I can capture the entire corner. But if you bump into white, then white can simply block, and this is a sente, right? Black pretty much has to add another move to make sure that he's alive. So this would be a very, very big move. Therefore, it's pretty much a sente. So if black Kosumi out, then white can just jump out. Not only gets out, but also tries to attack the black group over here. If black keeps jumping, then white can just follow up. The more jumps they make over here, then the thinner that black becomes over here. So black lost a lot of values, but can black actually capture the group over here? No, it's not easy, right? First of all, white has an Atari over here, getting some eye space. There's already a little bit eye space over here, not to say that white can run out. There's a very wide exit for white. So that's what white should have played. In the actual game, white simply connected, and that is very passive and slow, and it's probably why white is falling behind in this game. After black plays the Hane, we can see that black has so much territory, and white only has like an outside, which is not even like very impressive, because after the stone over here, it's really hard to build with this influence. So black just has more cash than white at this point. White goes into the corner and then Kosumi back. The reason white doesn't go into the corner like this is probably afraid of black's attach over here, right? So if this happens, then we can see that the corner is lost. That's why white plays the Kosumi. And next up, we have black immediately invading white's moyo. White plays a very beautiful Tsuji. This is basically trying to suppress black and basically baiting black from coming to basically cut off the two groups, right? It's very natural for black to go ahead and cut off the two groups, and this is what Wu Yiming played in the actual game. And then we have Luo Chuyue playing a second line jump. This is a very beautiful move. If white simply pulls the stone back, this looks too rigid and this looks very heavy, right? So against this move, you don't really want to fight white here because it doesn't really work, right? But what you want to do as black is to simply go from the second line. And now we can see that white's shape is very, very awkward and it's very heavy. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you are, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. And if you want to dive deeper and support what I'm doing, check out my Patreon. I regularly post exclusive high-quality content on josekis, pro game breakdowns, and even full courses. Stuff you won't find anywhere else. The link is in the description. Thanks so much. Let's continue. So in the actual game, white jumps, and black jumps on top, preventing the push and cut. White caps black on top, black tries to get out, and white crawls on the third line, getting rid of black's space. Next, we have black peeps at white's shape, white has to connect, and now black just takes the profit by capturing the stone over here, which is absolutely huge. And now white needs to obviously get compensations by attacking the two stones or even kill the two stones. In the actual game, white played a very aggressive move because she realizes that she is behind. Usually locally the best move is probably for white to just play the Hane and clean kill the stone. But because white is falling behind in this game, she has to play a little bit aggressive to try to come back into this game. Next up, we have Wu Yiming playing a Tsuji, making use of the weaknesses that white has with this Keima. And white Hane's on the outside. And that's the correct response. If white pushes here, black will not fight directly. If black fights directly, this might not work for black tactically. But what black can do is try to attack the stone over here. As white runs out, then once black has more stones, the next move, black cuts over here. This would be a serious problem for white. So that's what white was afraid of, and therefore white plays the Hane on the outside. Black crosscut. White bumps into black, black extends on top. And here white jumps to secure the territory. Another variation is for white to push on top. And black plays the Hane over here, forcing white to connect on the fourth line. So the idea is like white is sacrificing the territory over here to ensure the safety of this stone over here. Because now, as you can see, that white's group has a lot of say towards the outside. In the actual game, white was worried about territory and therefore she jumps on the fifth line. Black Ataris, white extends, black pushes on top, and we have the bump and cut. So white obviously had to cut here, or else this stone will feel very inefficient and useless. So the cutting is very good. Black connects, and now white squeeze over here. That's a sente. And black now connects, right? Further hurting the stone, making sure the corner is captured in a very clean way. Next up, we have white jumping out. That's a must play move, or else black plays the keima and white is just dead. And here Wu Yiming plays a super Tsuji, that is to run the stone. It's a little hard to see this Tsuji, right, without good practice. The reason you're pushing here is because if black directly push and cut like this, then white can defend by blocking on the third line. And there's absolutely nothing over here, right? When black connects, white can simply Atari, and we can see white wins this Liberty fight. But what Wu Yiming did was that when black pushes first, in the actual game, Luo Chuyue cut, and now we can see that here white cannot really block because this is an Atari. White had to turn, and now this is a favorable exchange for black, right? Previously, when black just push and cut, it doesn't really work, but now there's a leak over here. Black can Atari and push down at some point. Here, Wu Yiming comes back and take the keima, right? Not only securing the moyo, but more importantly, attacking the three stones over here. Must play move. White hops out, black plays the tiger's mouth, fixing the shape. White also fixes the shape, right? There's some cutting issues over here. And then black Ataris, white extends, and black jumps back. And here white thinks that this move is still very, very big, and therefore she turns over here. It's indeed a lot of points. And that's probably the correct move to play, right? If you play a move on the outside, which is very important, but then when black pushes down, this is so many points. The corner's weaker. There's some co-threats in here, so it was very important for white to come back and defend the territory. But then black gets a sente and play the 2-space jump, and white's group is in a very awkward situation. White hops out, and now black plays the keima on the third line. So this is a very important move, because if you play on the outside, now white can play the keima. And this is pretty much a sente, right? Because I'm trying to slide in, and therefore black needs to defend. And then when white plays another 1-space jump, this not only shrinks black's corner, but also gives white a lot of ice space, which is not something that black wants to give white. Therefore, black plays the keima. And now white plays a very aggressive move, trying to come into black's territory. If white plays safe, this would be a little bit too safe, because when black plays the keima, we can see that all the territories are protected. If white jumps back, yes, white is very safe, but that's the equivalent of resigning, because black just has too much territory. So white has to fight here. Therefore, white plays the keima, trying to come into black's territory. Black attaches, and white hanes. If I was playing black at this point, I'll probably just chicken out and play a more solid move that is on the fourth line. Of course, it might not be as good as attach, but this could avoid a lot of trouble, especially when you are ahead in the game. In the actual game, black attaches, white hanes, and black extends, and then we go into a pretty fierce fight, because black cuts on top, white Ataris, black extends, and now white extends on the third line. Black blocks, and white Hani and Tiger's Mouth. That's kind of what I was saying, right? If we played on the fourth line, all of these stories will not happen. And black could just enjoy a very safe lead and try to play on the left side. But now a fight breaks out, and there's more chances for black to make mistakes. Black Ataris, white connects, and black now cuts white. White bumps into black, and black play the block here. This is a very big mistake from Wu Yiming at this point. The correct move is probably for black to simply pull the stone back. So this is a very beautiful shape move, right? First of all, we're making sure in a fight that we have good shape and we're safe over here. Now, this is a very difficult situation for white as well, because locally it looks like we can connect here as white and try to kill the corner. Well, in fact, white can actually kill black's corner, because these two stones are in trouble, and therefore black needs to spend another move to fix it. And white crawls on the second line, and indeed, white was able to kill the corner. But look at what's happening in the center. After the extension move over here, there's absolutely no way for white to live. over here, right? This is just clean dead, like very, very dead. So yes, black can sacrifice the corner locally, but if white's center dies, then that's game over. So a more interesting or resilient variation is for white to attach on top, but black can simply turn. White pushes on top, black captures. If white squeezes, then black comes back and just kill the group. When white Ataris, black can simply just connect. And this is okay for black, right? So white was able to connect back, but black was able to gain the capture over here, which further strengthens black's territory. So if black played like that, it will still be a leading game for black. Now let's see what's wrong with what happened in the actual game. Wu Yiming plays the block, and now white plays the bamboo. So this move is not just a fixing move, but it has a lot of value. It puts a lot of pressure on the two stones that black has. Black now gets the sente and Atari the stone, but then when Luo Chuyue plays a beautiful Tsuji, we see the problem with black not playing the shape move, right? That is to extend. Whenever you have a liberty problems, it's always a problem. Black Ataris, white Ataris, black captures, and now white connects. All of a sudden, after this connection, we can see that not only there's a squeeze Atari over here, but also white is just alive here, right? Because there's a miai locally. When black tries to break the eye over here, white can make another eye by playing the tiger's mouth. Likely there's an eye over here, and we have another eye over here. So white is quite strong with this group after connecting. But more importantly, there's a lot of aji left in this corner, as well as the Atari, and then there's a lot of aji over here, which we'll talk about. In the actual game, black turns into the corner, trying to secure the kill. And now white Ataris and jumps on top. Black captures, white connects on top, and now black plays the extension here. The reason she played extension instead of, maybe just capture this group in a clean way is that white has an attach over here. That's a very serious follow-up. Black has to hane, and then white has a double hane here. If white plays on top, then that's instantly game over, because when black connects, white can simply play out the Kosumi here, and this would just capture black in here. So black has to pretty much just connect, but then white connects on top, and for the exact same reason, you will have to Atari here. When I Atari, black has to capture. White can even extend on the first line, forcing black to connect. And then we can capture the stone on the third line. This is a sente locally for black, but as we can see, white is piercing through the territory. And this also makes the corner a little bit unsafe at some point. But the fact that white was able to pierce from top to the bottom is a very big gain for white. So that's a very big move, right? Comparing to what black played, when black played here, all of these are territory. So that's a huge difference. That's why black had to play this move. But then when white squeeze over here, we can see there's still a lot of aji in the corner. Black Ataris, white Ataris from outside, black connects, white connects, black plays the Atari. Here white plays the ko. Is that the correct move? Absolutely. So right now, white absolutely has to play this ko because white has a lot of ko threats over here. Black takes, and now white pushes. This is a absolute ko threat. If black had the guts to take on the outside, then white can simply play a Tsuji here, and that is game over for black. So in the actual game, black played the tiger's mouth, white capture back, and black plays the second line connection move. This is probably another very big mistake from Wu Yiming. The correct move is right now for black to block in the corner, making sure that this group is killed in a very clean fashion. If white captures, black spends another move to secure the kill. Because if you don't secure the kill, white has a monkey's jump, and this becomes a seki in the corner. And after this, white will hane on the outside, black connects, white connects, and now this is a little bit difficult for black as well, but at least black has a lot of territory, right? So the center needs to be dealt with, and black has to play very carefully here. For example, if you play very carelessly, then white's going to peep from the outside, attach and bump into black, And when black blocks, white will simply cut over here. And this is big trouble for black, especially this group over here. But if the game plays out like this, white has a great chance, but this is still very playable for black. But in the actual game, black was worried about the safety of these two stones, and therefore she plays the second line connection. The problem with this move is that it's not as big as the move that white played over here. Once white captures a stone, black has to act immediately to deal with the group over here. In the actual game, she played the block. As we said, if black plays the block over here, white has a big monkey jump, and that would become a joseki, which is not acceptable for black. Therefore, black chooses to capture the group. White jumps into the 2-2, and black had to extend on the first line, making sure that white is killed. Now, after the exchange over here, let me quickly present to you what's going to happen if both players decide to play out here. White's going to capture first, and this is a sente. Black can't even play the Atari, because when white plays the Atari, black cannot connect the stone. And this would lead to a liberty problems in the fight over here. So the correct move is for black to pull the stone back. This is already a gain for white. Next up, we have white will simply connect on the second line. And black plays the crawl, white Ataris, black connects, white plays here, and black plays here. The next move, white plays here, and black captures. So black only captured the stones over here, which is exactly 14 points. But white was also able to gain 6 points over here. So at the end of the day, black is only earning like 8 points in here. So that is a very miserable outcome for black because it was black's territory to start with. And white did all of that in sente. Not to say the worst part is white doesn't even have to play these things right now. And these are all very precious co-threats. And that's a very big asset for white as well, having a lot of co-threats over here. So this is a terrible outcome for black, and black's pretty much thrown, she has pretty much thrown all the lead from before, and this game is probably slightly worse for black at this point. Okay, so in the actual game, white is feeling great about the game, and she starts to show her strength by, cutting through over here. So after these forcing moves, black has to hop out, making sure that this corner is fine. White pincers, and black plays the Kosumi, preventing the attach. White hops out in the center, making sure that this group is okay. And black goes into white's corner to gain some territory, right? At this point, white is already leading in terms of territory after the big defeat that black experienced. So at this point, if this all becomes territory, this would be not acceptable for black. White Hanes, black Hanes on the second line. The reason black didn't Hane over here is because black was worried that white will simply extend. Now, we all knew that this is a joseki, right, locally. But because of white's stone over here and because of how thick white is, white can actually peep and then block on the at 2-2, and this becomes a co-alive instead of a clean alive. Black's correct move is to play the second line attach. If black plays the Hane over here, the life and death is that white is going to play the empty triangle when black is looking for more ice space. Because of the special situation we're in here, white can actually attach and kill black this way. If black plays the Kosumi, white will play a death shape inside black's corner, and this is just a clean death for black. So at this point, black has a Tsuji, that is to attach at 1-2. White's correct move is to play the Hane here. Extending would be a big mistake because black can simply block over here. And this is actually a life shape, right? So the reason this is a life shape is because so the idea for you to live in this corner is for you to make sure that white will eventually become a bend 4. So for example, if white squeeze over here, then we can just connect. When you block, then I can play the first line extension, right? This is pretty much forcing you to play here. And then we can Atari from behind and become a bend 4. And there's no way for white to stop that. The idea for white to play the Hane is that if you play out like this, then white can squeeze like this and then block, and black only has 2 liberties, and therefore black is just killed. Okay, some basic life and death stuff. Well, not very basic. So the correct move for black to play is to throw in at 1-2, forming a ko. But as we have just explained, white didn't exchange any moves over here, and therefore this is a warehouse of ko threats, and therefore black is pretty much like clean dead in here, right? Because of the abundance of ko threats that white has. That's what Wu Yiming was worried about in the actual game. Therefore, she Hane on the second line. White Ataris, black flip Ataris, and white had to connect. Then we have the Keima coming. White blocks, black pushes, white blocks, and black cuts on top. White pushes, black blocks on top, white Ataris, expecting black to simply connect, but black actually plays a Tsuji on the first line, but it doesn't really matter because white can now get out from here. And at this point, black can't even extend it anymore. The reason is that when white connect over here, black is broken into pieces. And therefore, very miserably, black had to play this move, letting white taking a Panuki on the outside. So that, black has the Sente and can connect over here. And this is absolutely giant move. The next move, black can connect on the second line once again. This is once again a very, very big move that both players are fighting for. But before they fight for this move, white, thanks to this Panuki, is going to threaten black over here. Therefore, white pulls the stone out and extend out, not only capturing a lot of points, but reducing black's ice space. Now, this group is actually under, it's not just under attack, it's actually facing life and death issues. Black plays the Keima in the center, and now as we can see, white is super thick, and therefore white goes for the kill by poking at black's shape. Very aggressive move. Black blocks and blocks again, and now white turns back. Black connects and white Ataris. Black connects once again. Here white makes an exchange, as we said, that's a Sente, and here white plays a Keima, not only enclosing some points, but also trying to stop the connection. Black plays the small knight, and white exchanges one move, another move, and then plays the tiger's mouth. Very nice shape move, trying to prevent the connection. Black first fixed the weakness over here, and white extends, preventing black playing the tiger's mouth and forming some ice space. Black cuts, white Ataris, and black attaches white on top. And white squeezes black, making sure there's absolutely no ice space over here. Black pokes at white. That's an absolute Sente. White had to connect. And now black plays the tiger's mouth. Another Sente. And black pushes. White pushes, making sure that black is disconnected. And black plays the tiger's mouth and squeeze into white. White fixed the problem. And black plays the Atari and connect. So usually white would just connect here, but white is not in a rush because white can capture this stone first. There's still bigger endgames than capturing the 3 stones over here, such as jumping into the corner. Since black is very behind in this game right now, she had to play the 2-2 and take the endgame. White now exchanges one move on the upper right, and black captures the group. Here, white plays the squeeze, trying to kill black, but of course, black connects. White connects, and black forms the eye. We can see that black has 2 eyes. And at this point, when white plays another Sente, this is a very nice Sente. It's poking at black's eye space. Next move, white can turn over here and enclosing a bunch of points. At this point, Wu Yiming realizes that she is so behind and this is a losing game, and therefore she played a move that is pretty much just giving up. And this happens a lot in professional games where it's like trying to find an excuse for resigning. And this happens like pretty much in every game I've seen, right? When you are behind, there's no hope, you will play a blunder, right? It's a blunder, but you play it anyway to say, oh, okay, I played a blunder. Okay, it's time for me to resign. So this is one of those cases. Because after white squeeze over here, black's dragon is dead, right? There's a Miai. White's going to capture, break the eye here, and white's going to push and break the eye over here. So the dragon is dead. Next move, black plays the tiger's mouth, and of course, white is going to cut off the connection, and this happens to be the last move in the game. Wu Yiming has the dragon dead on purpose, right? She knew how to live, but she didn't want to live because she wanted to resign. So overall, this has been a very interesting game. It was Wu Yiming's favorable game, right? Wu Yiming had a huge lead because of the slow moves that White played, but I think the losing moment really for Wu Yiming was the shape, right? She played a bad shape, and White punished it and just drastically uh, basically she closed the gap by a lot, pretty much brought the game back to equal. And later on, because Black was not very keen in terms of keeping the territory here, White was able to basically come into this corner with a lot of points and squeezing Black by quite a lot. So this game becomes a leading game for White. And Wu Yiming was fighting in the center, but White has defended everything properly. And at the end, Wu Yiming found herself an excuse to resign by playing a seemingly blunder move. By the way, this Go tournament is called Bai Shui Apple Cup. So what I understand is that the Bai Shui apple is a type of apple that is so popular it made so much money, so it is sponsoring this Go tournament. So I did my research, and this is how Bai Shui apples look like. And every time you put a place name in front of something, it feels more powerful. For example, Italian tofu, New York chicken, les escargots de Paris, Indian tesuji, they just sound better.